Welcome to Think About It, a program where we'll discuss important issues impacting our society. My name is Rick, and today our topic is the delusion of democracy. The delusion of democracy. Lately I've been following some events happening in France where the people are protesting. The situation is over retirement age, where the government wanted to raise retirement age from age 62 to 64. Now, the process, the way it was supposed to work, the government was supposed to go to the parliament and have a vote on it. But the government realized that the parliament was not going to approve the measure. So they use some kind of special constitutional power to force it through. So the people were protesting. But one thing that struck my attention was somebody was talking, the journalists were talking to someone, and I think it was a lady, and she said that democracy is not working in France. And she was saying that the leaders are doing things that the people oppose. The leaders are doing things that the people oppose. So we're going to talk about democracy today, right? Democracy, I don't know if you know, but that was founded by the Greeks. It was the Greeks who came up with the system. But it couldn't work because true democracy is majority rule. Now, if you're going to have a system where on every issue the majority has to vote and participate, it will be impossible to get anything achieved, right? Because the masses are not able to do all these things, right? Can you imagine, like, in the United States, if you are really getting everybody to come together to discuss issues, to go over things, etc., it would take you forever to achieve even one thing, right? So it did not work for the Greeks. And one other thing with democracy, if you try to sort of a democratic system, eventually it ends up in tyranny, because somebody will be smart enough and they will understand that democracy doesn't work, and they will go and manipulate the masses to cause the masses to see things a certain way to enrich themselves, right? So it becomes a problem, right? And that's why we see throughout human history, tyranny has been the norm, right? Tyrannical governments have been the norm. Now, the system of democracy returned again, we would say, with the United States. With the founding of the United States, they came up with a government of the people, for the people, by the people, etc. But even the United States is not a democracy. The United States is a republic, because you vote for elected officials, and these elected officials make decisions on your behalf. It could be decisions you're not even agreeing with, right? So, first of all, we say that real democracy does not exist. It does not exist in our society. It does not exist in any society in the world. Now we're looking at democracy in the way that we come to understand it, especially in America or in the Western world. One other thing that I think about, as we say, the show title is Think About It, right? Is democracy is a system to deceive the masses. What do I mean by that, right? Well, before the 1700 United States Revolution, every single country in the world was a monarchy. The British was a constitutional monarchy. They try to limit the nobility, try to limit the power of the king, but everywhere else, it was a monarchy. And then you had the French Revolution. What caused the French Revolution? Well, the people were starving. The people were living bad, and they were looking at the king and the queen and seeing the Boudin family living in luxury. They were living in luxury, having feasts all the time. There's even a statement attributed to Marie Antoinette where she said, "Let them eat cake," right? So the people are looking at that and they say, okay, look, the king is living good, but we're not living good. We have to do something about it, right? And then you had the French Revolution. The French Revolution, the masses revolted against the king, and the king ended up being executed. He was beheaded, right? And then you had the Reign of Terror, where the whole thing came, descended into madness. And eventually, guess what happened? They were seeking to overthrow the king. They ended up with Napoleon, who became an emperor, right? So tyranny, in a very short time, tyranny returns. But one thing I think about is that in the 1800s, you had revolutions going all over the place. People were asking for democracy. People were saying we are done with the monarchy. We don't want the monarchy anymore. We don't want one man controlling us anymore. We don't want the elite controlling us anymore. We want to have our own destiny in our own hands. And what I really think about is the elite realize, okay, we can no longer control the people with the system of government. We can no longer control the people with a monarchy. We have to come up with a different way to control the masses, right? Because anytime the people had a problem, they would look at the king and say the king is the problem. We have to take down the king. And really, a lot of times the king was the problem for real, because the king was taxing the people, using the people's wealth to enrich themselves, right? So the elite says, okay, you know what? This system can no longer work. We have to come with a system that is more effective. We have to come with a system to make the masses believe that they are the one making the choices. They are the one choosing the direction of the country. And once you give the masses the illusion that they are in charge, then they will be more passive to rule. They will be more passive to rule. And I think this is what has happened in societies all over the world. Look at the United States, for example, right? In the United States, we only really have two parties. We have the Republicans and the Democrats, right? And the thing is, every 4 years, we have an election. So let's say you voted in Republicans. And you voted Republicans because you feel like the last 4 years, the Democrats were not doing good. They were not doing things that I wanted. They were not helping me financially. So the system says, you know what? Let's change the party. Let's change the party from the Democrats to Republican. Now you vote in the Republican president. And then you realize my condition is still the same. Nothing has changed. Matter of fact, these leaders are doing the same thing that the prior administration did. They're continuing a lot of the same policies, right? And then the next 4 years again, you say, you know what, I'm going to vote for Democrats again. And it keep going. Democrats, Republicans, and the masses are getting poorer while the elite are getting richer. And you have to stop and ask yourself, could it be that both Republicans and Democrats are two wings of the same bird? Could it be it is the same system at the highest level? But it's like a river that divided into streams, right? It's like the river, one source, but it divides into streams to deceive the people, right? Now, let's think about this. When I was like younger, I used to play soccer with friends. We go to the park, we sit down together, we talk, and then we go in the field. We go in the field, we make teams, right? We make two teams, right? And sometimes we have jersey. Okay, we say this one team wear this jersey and this other team wear this other jersey, right? And while we're playing the game, you can see some animosity sometimes. Like, players getting mad at each other. Players, like some people even sometimes come to the brink of wanting to fight, right? So you're seeing this animosity. Let's say now you never knew us, right? Let's say you just show up on the field for the first time. And you're seeing this guy playing on the red team. He's getting mad at the guy on the blue team, right? You may conclude that these guys are really against each other because they have different uniforms on. We have different uniforms on, and there is tension in the game. There is sometimes animosity in the game. People crying out for this foul and that foul, etc. Now you may conclude that these guys are really against each other and they will really fight each other, right? But let's say you leave before the game's over. See, what you don't know is after the game's over, we all go back together and sit down on the benches and have a good time and have conversation and talk and have a good time. Because the truth is, we are friends. When the game is over, we are friends. And this is what I want you guys to understand when we are speaking about the illusion of democracy. These guys who are in power at the highest level, whether they are Democrats or Republicans, they are friends. Behind closed doors, they are friends. But in public, they give us this spectacle. They give us the spectacle of disagreement, the spectacle of animosity to deceive the masses, right? Now, if you're looking at the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, at the lower level, the people may not be aware of this. At the lower level, they may not be aware of this. But the higher you go, you are dealing with an elite class. Do you really think it's possible that someone like Mitch McConnell, Senator Mitch McConnell and Senator Chuck Schumer, who have been working together for who knows how many years, it could be decades, do you really believe that these guys are enemies? I mean, these guys work in the same area. They probably go to eat together all the time. They probably have the same country club. These guys are doing the same activities with each other. And you think these guys are real enemies? No, they're not. They're not. No, that leads me back to a thing I read of in the past, where they were saying, like, if you want a kid to eat broccoli, for example, right? You give him two choices. You give him this color broccoli and you give him this other broccoli, right? And now the child is thinking, okay, I'm making a choice. He's thinking that I'm practicing self-determination. I'm choosing my destiny. But the child doesn't understand that he's choosing the destiny that you have provided for him. And this is the way our democratic system work. The system, the elite, they pick the people, right? So you have these campaigns going on. You have all these candidates running or whatever. They don't mind whoever you choose. They don't care if you choose Donald Trump. They don't care if you choose Joe Biden. They don't care about that. But at the end of the day, you have to understand that these leaders are not working for the people. They are working for the elite. Whether it's Joe Biden, whether it's Donald Trump, they are not answering to the masses. They are answering to the people who appoint them in position of power. Because think about it. Who pays these politicians? It's not you. When they're running their campaigns, rich people are donating millions of dollars for them. They're not just giving out money because I like the way you look. They're giving out money, and the money come with requirement. Always think about the thing I mentioned to you, the team aspect. Now, when these guys come into power, they are having all these meetings. They are having this private lunch. They are having all these things. You don't know what they're talking about. You don't know what they're talking about, right? So that's why, if we're looking at our world right now, our world is on the brink of revolution. Almost every nation is tottering towards revolution because a lot of the masses are realizing, wait a minute, when I want something done, something that would benefit the people, it takes years to be done. But when the elite wants something to be done, it's done right away, right? You look at the civil rights movement for the blacks, it took like 100 years. It took a long time. It took struggle. It took people dying. But you look at the homosexual movement, for example, right? Because the elite support it, it's comparatively in a short time, you had the gay marriage. And now you're looking at even the transgender movement, right? In a short time, transgenders are running the whole place, right? So you have to ask yourself, okay, why is it that when the masses want something that will benefit them, the government takes its time, but when it's something that the elite want, it comes real quick? Because the same elite system you had in the past, when you had the monarchy, where you had the nobility, you had the king, still exists today, but under a different form. Today, the only difference is today they give us, me and you, the appearance of choices. So we keep on voting, we keep on going and voting and campaigning and voting and voting and voting, and we are seeing nothing change. Because it is an illusion. And we can even see that in the scriptures. For example, when you look at the situation with Christ, the Sanhedrin was composed of the Sadducees and the Pharisees, right? Now, the Sadducees and the Pharisees, they hated each other, right? Publicly, they would be against each other. They would promote different agendas because the Sadducees sided with Herod the king, and the Pharisees were more patriotic, right? The Sadducees were more liberal, and the Pharisees were more conservative. You can look at even the United States right now, like the Republicans are more conservative. They act more patriotic, and the Democrats are more liberal. They act more in terms of like social movements, and they act like they are for the whole, etc., right? But when it came time to crucify Jesus, what happened? When it came time to crucify Jesus, what happened? The Sanhedrin gathered together, Sadducees and Pharisees, and they condemned Jesus. Now, another thing I wanted to mention, we're speaking about democracy being an illusion. When Christ was being crucified, when Christ was in the judgment hall of Pilate, Pilate wanted to free Jesus, right? The masses, whom Jesus did a lot of things for, Jesus healed them, he cured them, he did a lot of good things for them, right? the masses cry for Jesus to be crucified. Now think about it. Think about this. Jesus went about doing good for the masses. But the masses crucified Jesus. They asked for his crucifixion. But how did that happen? When you read the scriptures, it was the chief priests and the elders who convinced the masses to cry, crucify Jesus and release Barabbas. The masses was deceived by the leadership into voting against their own interests. And this is what happens. It's been happening from antiquity, and it's happening even now. The leadership of the nations, the elite, they consider the masses to be ignorant. Matter of fact, Hitler had this quotation where he was saying, "What good fortune for government that the people do not think." The government know that the people are ignorant in a sense, because we as the masses, we are so busy working, so busy thinking about our own personal lives that we have no time to really think about how are things really in our society. So when the government comes and says, "Look, we have to do this thing, we have to go to Vietnam to defend our democracy," nobody asks and say, "Wait a minute, how is it that I have to go to Vietnam to kill other innocent people, other people like in their own country to defend my democracy here?" When the government comes and says, "Look, we have to go to Iraq because Iraq has weapons of mass destruction," no one think and ask, "Wait a minute, well, Russia has weapons of mass destruction. North Korea has weapons of mass destruction, but we don't go attack them. Why Iraq?" We never ask, okay, if Iraq really had weapons of mass destruction, would we attack them? No, we don't ask these critical questions. And the government know we would not ask these critical questions. So they stir up patriotic fervor to say, okay, if anybody questioned the narrative that this person is an enemy of the state, and so we tune out those critical voices who would tell us the government may be lying. The government is lying. We can't trust the government because they have their own vested interests. When we go to these wars, the leadership, they don't send their kids to wars, but it is our kids, the kids of the masses that go and get wounded and die in these conflicts. But guess what? The reward, the financial reward, the money goes back to the leadership, to the elite. And we saw it. The reason why, in the case of Christ, the leadership saw Jesus as a threat to their power, right? So even though in public, the Sadducees and the Pharisees appeared to be at animosity with each other, at each other's throat, when it came time to defend their power and their interests, they deceived the masses. They united together. They deceived the masses into killing their own savior. So what I'm saying is this is here. Democracy is an illusion. When it comes to voting for things at the local level, I think real democracy works there. If you got to vote for, what they call it, if they have these things, let's say they're voting for an issue, right? Okay, should we build a casino here or not? You vote for this, that's democracy, right? But when we're dealing with national government, we are dealing with big business. We are dealing with big money. We are dealing with an elite class. It is no different than having a royalty. The only thing is the president is an actor on the stage. They put this leader to accomplish a certain work. Once that leader's work is over, they take him out, they put somebody else. It doesn't matter who you vote. The result will be what the elite want and not what the people want. The people don't make choices for the nations. The elite rule the nations. And that's why the motto of the elite is to divide and conquer. As they divide us, they make us fight. Okay, you a Democrat, I can't talk to you. You're a Republican, I can't talk to you. So the people are fighting these battles among themselves. They are hitting each other, attacking each other, while the Democrats and the Republicans at the very top, they are eating together. They are spending time together. So as Christians in these last days, we have to be very careful of being deceived by political illusion. That's why we should not waste our time fighting for a Democrat, Republican, or whatever it is, whatever country you are in, fighting for the left, for the right. Because at the end of the day, both the left and the right are two wings of the same bird. But let us as Christians fight for the kingdom of God. Let us as Christians promote love, unity, kindness, and love. I mentioned to teach the kingdom of God, because only when the will of God is done in our own personal lives and we are sharing God's love and his will, that we will have true freedom in a society, that we will have true liberty. Only God can give us true liberty. Democrats and Republicans are in it for their own interests. Once again, this is Think About It, and I'm out.